Now listen, you know exactly why we are here today, and let's just get into it. If you are ready to see why billions, yes, billions of streams have been faked. Well, listen, the Drake stans never wanted to face this because this is their worst nightmare. But be sure to leave a like because we are really gonna need it today. And get ready and say it with me. Now when it comes to Drake! Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, we got him. Drake has been caught bad, and right now what we are seeing is the start of another lawsuit, which while it is bigger than Drake and it is against Spotify as a whole, the centerpiece of it is Drake, his catalog, and the fraudulent activity on his streaming numbers, which, well, don't just happen to be in the thousands or in the millions or just on a few songs here and there, but matter of fact are in the billions on his entire catalog. And well, if you are ready to now see how Drake has really been running the ultimate grift, and that is just the fact that, well, those numbers are really all a lie, and after everything they have been putting on Kendrick Lamar and his fake streams, well, there's a Kendrick Lamar bar for everything, and he already told us what was about to happen. As he said, conspiracy theories is given, but I must admit it, you got the wrong person. Well, oh, did the Drake stans and OVO ever get the wrong person? Because at the end of the day, the guys who they were trying to call out for the things they were enraged by have happened to all be coming from their favorite artists. So listen, we are going to get into everything that is about to just ruin Drake's name in a way like we have never seen. So if you have not already, gotta ask, make sure to leave a like and subscribe because we are going to need it. The Drake stans are not going to like this. And as honestly, as this is a moment that is going to show us that the streaming game has been a lie. Numbers don't really matter. Drake's been a fraud, and that everything we have seen and that has built the music world in this era, well, in terms of all of this superficial garbage, is just that, superficial garbage. Really make sure to leave a like because this is an important one. And so right now, when it comes to Drake, well, there was a shocking article that was released by Rolling Stone very early into this morning, and it's an exclusive that was seemingly waiting to come out, and what it is telling us right in the headline is that there is a lawsuit against Spotify which is claiming that billions of Drake streams were fraudulent, and then it goes on to say a new class action lawsuit accuses a streaming platform of turning a blind eye to mass-scale fraudulent streaming. And well, who is on the face of this article? Well, it's none other than everybody's favorite Cupcake, and fittingly so, when he was trying to troll everybody and look cool at the World Series. But now everything is about to get much worse from here, because genuinely, with some of the stuff that they are saying about Drake, and with some of the stuff that they are saying is coming out, it's not just shocking because we are hearing about these just genuinely awful practices that Drake has been using and manipulating the whole system with. But again, for Drake as an artist and for OVO and the fans as a brand and community, when you derive and define your identity in these very things that are turning out to be pretty fake, this is where things get complicated, and this is where things get really, really embarrassing. But so getting into the details, what now happened, and this is where things get interesting. And I just have to say, after all of the stuff around UMG and the bot streams there and Kendrick Lamar being a part of some big conspiracy, and they were saying that everything that was being built around these fake streams and some case that was seemingly being built was all going to come to Kendrick, for it to come to Drake is just honestly so funny. But what is specifically happening here, and who is suing Spotify and calling out Drake and has seemingly tracked everything? Well, it's not just anybody, but it's legendary hip-hop rapper who filed this in California, and he is from the West Coast, and his name is RBX, which for those who don't know, he is a cousin of Snoop Dogg. He is a frequent collaborator of Dr. Dre, and I mean, if we had a conversation about rappers who were featured on the most classic albums, this guy is featured on the Marshall Mathers LP and Snoop and Dr. Dre's first solo album, so that already right there gives him some sort of a legacy in hip-hop. That, of course, is greater than most, and he has a ton of other stuff he has done over the years, just the definition of a hip-hop professional. And so the reason why he did this states is this: every month, under Spotify's watchful eye, billions of fraudulent streams are generated from fake, illegitimate, and/or illegal methods like bots, which is what the lawsuit states. And then it says such massive streaming fraud causes legitimate financial harm to artists, songwriters, producers, and other rights holders. And the reason why is because the streaming royalties are handed out through a model that Spotify has called Stream Share, which is pretty much a giant pool with everything divided up based on each other's share of the total. And so the more you obtain within this already set pool, the more you end up walking away with, which is why people like Drake try to manipulate this system. And it's why Drake's success is actually taking away from what other artists are able to pull off. And so where things start to focus in on Cupcake is where it says this. And then the lawsuit says it has information which Spotify knows or should knows proves that a substantial, non-trivial percentage of Drake's approximately 37 billion streams were inauthentic and appeared to be the work of a sprawling network of bot accounts. And what I just want to say here, and I am saying this with the biggest smile on my face because I told you so, is that for all these Drake stans who said that he was doing this for the industry and to help out the little guy and to make things better, well, to now see Drake again sitting at the top of this pretty much grift and scheme that they have all created and have all drawn up, and well, again, his success is literally taking away other resources and other bags that other artists who are smaller and who may need the actual stuff, well, from ever getting what they are owed. Well, once again, just never tell me that Drake is pro-industry, pro-artist, or pro-anything that relates to just the community of people that stand within the same space that he tries to be the face of. But of course, and as we are finding out more and more every day, Drake may be the most anti-industry person in all of music right now, and maybe even more than that. But I won't go as far as say that yet. And so once again, where things get worse and where things even get beyond a scope that is bigger than the beef and show that this was always inevitable had Drake just made the wrong choices and continued to go on the path that he has, well, is ultimately what it says here. It claims an examination of Drake's streams revealed abnormal VPN usage had obscured the location of the bot accounts streaming Drake's songs, and for instance, it says the lawsuit is claiming that over a 4-play period in 2024, at least 250,000 streams of his song No Face originated in Turkey, but were falsely geomapped through the coordinated use of VPNs to the United Kingdom in an attempt to obscure their origins. And Drake and all of your stans, I gotta say it once again, conspiracy theories is given, I gotta admit it, you got the wrong person, because after when all those things were going on in Turkey with the UMG and the label offices there, and everybody was saying that they were getting all of this information and they were extracting and pulling it out because Kendrick was the one lying and all the fake streams were here and everything that was going to ruin his name forever and help Drake was all gonna come out when this happened. Now that we are seeing that Drake was hiding out in Turkey and using all these fake streams there to try and make him look bigger everywhere else, you just can't make up how bad this guy looks and how much he manages to just fail and really stumble constantly. But listen, if you thought that was bad enough, I got news for you. It only gets worse, as what we also find out is that a large percentage of accounts streaming Drake's music were geographically concentrated around areas whose population could not support such a high volume of streams. And now, while according to the article, no exact places or numbers were given, the suit claimed that some streams reportedly originated in areas with 0 residential addresses. And Drake! How could you do this? How could you manage to try to play a game, do this grift, and rig the system, and not even think through basic things like how this could potentially be traced back to find out that all this stuff is fake, all this stuff is a lie, and that it's not actually happening? Because you know, if you are getting caught on stuff like this, which again, you are putting all of these fake streams and making all of these fake numbers come in places where it's not even fathomable that they could be created. I mean, you know, it's this classic conversation. If you are going to do something bad, dishonest, and horrible, at least have the decency to try and do it right, because to get caught like this, I mean, this is just some straight clown stuff. And you know, it gets even worse from here, as the lawsuit also cites significant and irregular upticks for Drake's songs long after they've been released, as well as slower and less dramatic decay rates for Drake's music compared to his contemporaries, which the decay rate refers to a typical streaming pattern where plays off of an album or song naturally dwindle in the weeks and months after release. Well, ultimately with this, it says that the number of streams in Drake's music attributable to individual accounts is staggering and irregular, with a massive amount of accounts listening to Drake's music doing so 23 hours a day, And then it also says that less than 2% of users listen to these other artists. And now there is a ton of other stuff in here, which pretty much is just continuing to expose how all of the patterns around a lot of Drake's streams are coming from irregular accounts, and well, therefore just skewed odds. You get the point. And as Rolling Stone did reach out to Drake's team for comment, and of course they didn't say anything, because why would they handle or try to get on top of any narrative or story where they look really bad? Because we have seen very recently that that is the last thing that these losers are ever going to do. Well, overall now what we are seeing is that this is seriously some crazy and horrible stuff. And if this turns out to be true, and if this picks up and more is discovered, this is going to have a ripple effect on the music industry that I don't think anybody is really ready for. Because to just find out that the last 4 or 5 years of Drake's career, which again, when I talk about it and when a lot of other people talk about it, it's been said that this has been one of the worst eras in music and in hip-hop. And again, it's felt like the music is falling on flat ears and nothing is really sticking and nothing is really landing, and we have been getting some of the worst stuff possible. And especially here, I'm talking about before the beef and in that 2022 and 2023 window, where, Drake's music just got a lot worse. And, it really just started to feel like he was becoming a parody or a caricature of himself. Well, to just now understand that the music really wasn't resonating with people, and Drake was using all of these numbers to keep some sort of an uptick on all of his music, despite what actual people were consuming and listening with. This is just genuinely surreal. And listen, I do think based on what we know and what we have already seen and what is already out there is so much more to this case. But I really do think, and this is where things are about to get a little weird, everything is only going to further focus in on Drake here, and I think that every single person who is complacent in this, which I do think there are other artists who tend to align with the industry and be known as label darlings, and then with the labels are in on this too. But what I think is that Drake has seemingly been the face of this entire operation. He has benefited from it the most. And he has just been the guy showing up every day to do this garbage. So right now, and this is where things are about to take a turn, which is now this. For Cupcake Drake, well, I 100% do think that if there are issues around his catalog and the numbers, I think that he probably did it. And I think that he has complacently and willingly known this, and he has just used this as another part of his whole grift game and gimmick that has allowed for him to be so arrogant. Because when you really think about the way he has acted, and even during the beef, it almost does seem like Drake knew that a system or a button was going to be flipped for him to try to help him win everything, and that's why he was so overconfident and why he didn't really properly prepare. And then when things turned out the way they did, he was so shocked, confused, and he just had a completely different switch in tone and character. And between that to even the first Not Like Us lawsuit in of itself, which of course Drake was showing and talking like he knew a lot about what the industry can do for songs and how an artist can benefit, which it felt like a lot of that was coming from guilt and personal knowledge rather than any sort of intuition on what was going on with Kendrick stuff. Well, overall, I already feel like Drake has left a big enough trail where we can just see that he has been making the art form and craft and culture of music worse overall together. But with that said, what I will say is, if you have noticed anything over the last week or so from everything we saw with Drake and Aiden Ross and all their issues there with their weird stuff going on with all that, and then even with the Not Like Us lawsuit continuing to happen and Drake not letting it go despite it being dismissed, what I think we have to understand and be aware of now is that Drake really became the first industry darling and the first person who was absolutely doing the worst for the industry in terms of just making the label system as bad as it is and making the entire music world, well, as unfair for artists as most artists will tell you. Well, now to step out of that system and to try and pull the current on the game that has been being run and the game that him and a few others were really benefiting for. And so I say all of that to say I think we need to be very aware of this, because I think it's going to be a key and crucial thing that is just going to dictate really how everything continues to move against Drake, which I think is going to be a lot worse, which is that in terms of artists, while Drake has been the worst guy, there are probably hundreds at the very least people in a small network of both artists and people within the label who have all been a part of this game and who have all been taking away from everybody else to benefit themselves and the trash and lazy, complacent music and garbage slop that they want to get away with. And what I want to do right now is draw a parallel to the NBA and everything we saw about a week or two ago when all this stuff came out about Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, and Damon Jones being a part of this operation, where, they were skewing the stats and controlling the games from a way that they are never supposed to be allowed to of course skew the odds and then have a bunch of people just win and benefit from them knowing the insider knowledge and then rigging the system. And so I just want to bring that up to pretty much say what I do think is going to start happening here with a lot of these things that Drake is a part of, is that, listen, just like I think we are seeing in the NBA, and I think a lot of the sports leagues are going to turn out and have this same problem, these issues are all here, and there are people on the inside who are ruining things for everybody else and who are manipulating the system in a way that it's never supposed to be utilized for. And as this is being discovered more and more, whether it's Terry Rozier or whether it's Drake here, what these groups are trying to do now is pin everything onto one person and one face only. Meanwhile, if we really want to break it down, there are probably tens or hundreds of other people who are involved within these very games in all of these different groups. And I just say all of that to say that right now, I think what we are going to see is Drake just take all of the fall for all of the problems that he and like 15 other people have really just been making absolutely terrible in music for the last 10 or 15 years or so. And it's just going to be interesting to see how everybody moves from here on out. Because again, while Drake has been one of the worst things for music, and he has definitely been the leader of this operation, and just from what's coming out here, we are starting to see that in full. You would be lying to yourself if you think that some of these other artists who always pop up in the industry, who always do big numbers, always make big records, but their cultural impact is not anywhere near that level. Well, if they're not rigging these numbers the same way Drake is, because in an industry where we know the name of the game and we know the path that the number one guy has taken, and we even see all of the friends and people he has kept around who have tried to do the very thing that he has. Well, I mean, if we know all of that, and even go back to lame old Jeffrey and the call he had about Gunna's album taking the number one from The Weeknd, and seeing how he literally called up the streaming guy to, boost up those first week numbers, and they were pretty much just talking about it in the most casual manner possible. Well, overall, I think for a lot of these guys who have just treated music the wrong way and who have made music more to have calculators rise to the top than actual art and things that can change people's lives. Well, starting out with Drake here, and hopefully more and more people end up getting exposed. Well, once again, I'm gonna say it, but I think for Cupcake and for a lot of these other grifters, things are about to get more crazy, scary, spooky, and hilarious. And so yeah, that's all I got today. Let me know your thoughts on everything kind of falling apart for Drake, and really one of the craziest lawsuits we have ever seen, with just showing that he really is the fraud that we have been saying. And where do you think all this is going to go, and what do you think about what's going to happen from here? And on my point I was saying about Drake starting to turn into the industry's guy who they are blaming everything on, even though, again, it's taken an entire group to do what Drake has. What are your thoughts on that, and do you think that that's also what's happening here as well? Well, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about all of this, and if you made it to this point in the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help me out a ton, and I can't thank you enough for the support. And now, if you want to see how right before this, well, Drake really just solidified his name as the biggest loser of all time after the World Series ended and his team lost, and Kendrick Lamar managed to get another win, all because of what Drake did there. And well, it's really only made everything happening here look a lot worse as well. You're not going to want to miss this one, so check it out.